Hey everyone, it's Danny, and in this video I'm answering a question from Tom, who wants to know how to improve the consistency of his strike when he's chipping. So let's get started. Let me explain. So the first thing that needs to happen when we're chipping is we need to kind of understand that only two things need to happen. The first thing, for a basic chip, that the ball needs to hit the middle groove of your wedge. The second thing is there needs to be some form of energy that moves towards the target, i.e. horizontally. Most people, when they're chipping, what do they tend to do? Well, if you're thinning the ball on the ground, this is what's tending to happen. The club is moving upwards, and look at the middle groove. The middle groove's pointing to the sky, and actually what's hitting the golf ball is the leading edge here. Some people have been told to hit down on the golf ball, and that's kind of true to a certain degree, but they often overdo it, and now they start hitting more of the top grooves of the club and coming down too steeply, and there's no forward momentum. So putting it simply, just to summarize that, we need to hit two things. We need to hit the ball in the middle groove, and we need to have a horizontal movement, and that's what we need to focus on. When we move down to the ground, there may be something else we could focus on. What type of impact with the ground do we need? Well, we want the leading edge just here, almost just scraping the ground. And when I'm looking at down here, I'm kind of almost seeing the ground being scraped roughly where the ball is, and then after the ball, probably about 4 or 5 inches. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the ball here, and then I'm imagining the ground being scraped away 3 or 4 inches, almost past the golf ball as well. So there's 2 or 3 things there that I'm focusing on. The middle groove, horizontal axis, and then the ground here being scraped away. Most people, okay, a lot of guys who are struggling with the chipping, they tend to hit the ground a little bit behind the golf ball, okay, and they're not getting a scrape, they're more getting a thud. And that is when the back or the bounce of the golf club is hitting the ground before the golf ball. So what we want to focus on here is the leading edge, which is the butter knife, I almost call it the butter knife here, almost scraping the ground as we're going through. Now, this brings me on to just a little point here about the whole learning process. So there's something in motor learning called internal focus and external focus. What we all get caught up in quite a lot, particularly if you're watching a lot of YouTube videos or reading a lot of books, we tend to get caught up in a lot of the technique. You know, what's my shoulders doing? What's my arms doing? What's my chest doing? What's my wrists doing? And the problem with that is we actually kind of lose concentration, lose focus, and actually really the most important bit is what's actually happening at the point of impact. So if, for instance, you're hitting some dodgy shots where you're thinning it over the back of the green, and then you go straight into what's called an internal focus, and we go, that could be my shoulders, it could be this. You can imagine you could get quite lost with that. Okay, I'm very confused. But if we go to what's called an external focus, and we actually go and go, okay, I've thinned that ball over the back of the green. What does it mean? What's the facts? What are the facts there? Well, the facts are that it's kind of hits the ball here. The ball here has hit the leading edge of the golf club. That's a fact. How have you done that? It doesn't really matter. What you do need to know is that's what you've done. So what could you then do immediately after that? Now you know the facts. Well, you could concentrate more on leaning this forward and making sure that you try and hit the middle groove. So let's do it again. So imagine this. We've just thinned one over the back of the green, and you hit a shot, and this time it's kind of semi-thin. It's not quite thin, but it's an improvement. You've made more angle. Great, you've made progress. You haven't got it right yet, but you've made some progress. So we go again. And each time what you're doing now, you're trying to stay away from worrying about what's going on in the body, and you're going to focus on, let's call it the business end, the most important, what is happening at the impact area. So off we go again. Do some rehearsals. That's the other thing I'll do here is you know, make some rehearsals before you go. Get the muscles and the body used to attacking the ground in the right way. So I'm scraping the ground here backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. That's it, until I get that kind of lovely sound, and then I go in. I've lent the club forward so I can hit the middle groove, and I'm going to focus only, not on the body for a second, I'm going to focus on the club hitting that golf ball with that strike here. And you can see here, I'm almost finishing, and that metal there has struck much more on a horizontal line, okay? Now, just to kind of simplify this, okay, I've got a couple of examples that might kind of just cement the learning here. There's 3 things that need to happen, and 3 things I really want you to take away from today. Here I've got a hammer and a nail. You now know how to strike a chip shot, okay? You know the components to it. Middle groove, horizontal. You can also use the ground as a scrape. Well, that's the same as a hammer and a nail. You know that that nail needs to go straight into that piece of wood if we're angling it here. That's the first thing. What do you do after that? Do you then go straight into your internal, your body, and go, okay, no problem, now do I need to move my shoulder or my arm or my... No, you go straight and look at that nail and you start hammering it, right? Then what happens? Sometimes the nail starts to go off at a different angle. So what do? Do you go straight back into your body and go, oh, what am I doing here? Very rarely, you know. What we tend to do is we tend to adjust it. We notice it's not working and we start to make those adjustments. We trust that as a human we've got these instincts and these subtle instincts to make those changes necessary. The third and final thing, persistence. Sometimes you don't always get it, but you keep going. Yeah, you notice what's working and what's not working, and you just keep going. The same applies to golf. And let me give you one more example just to kind of cement this. When a child learns to walk, what do? Externally, they see what needs to happen. They see the mummy and daddy walking, they say, you know, I want to do that. So they start to watch. They get up, they fall. They get up, they fall. They don't get it, right? But eventually they do. They don't go into their body and go, oh, do I need to move my left foot here and right hip here or knee up here? No. They just watch, fail, watch again, fail loads more, and keep going. In golf, there's no difference. Now you know what to do. You know that you need a horizontal strike with a middle groove. But that on its own is not going to transform your chipping. What's going to transform your chipping are those 3 things. You know the scrape. But what's going to happen is you're going to hit some dodgy shots, even though you know this. But your job now is to notice what's happening at that point. How are you actually striking it compared to the way you should be striking it? And that third thing, just keep persisting. Notice when it's not working and keep going. Until next week, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments box below. And again, follow me on my Twitter page, my Facebook page, socialize with some of the guys on there. Any questions, like I say, pop them in the message box below, and I'll see you next week.